Guys, we got the brand new updated AP poll for college football. It just came out after the major upsets that happened yesterday, just as I predicted. The top three in order: Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State. Alabama receives 9 first-place votes. Georgia's at 53. Ohio State with just 1. Now, to explain what happened exactly here with these top three, Georgia, we all knew they were going to go to number 1 after Alabama struggled so much with Texas. They should have lost. We knew Alabama was going to drop, but due to Notre Dame losing to Marshall and knocking Notre Dame out of the poll completely, that really devalued Ohio State's chance to move up to number 2. That was my analysis of it yesterday, and it's so obvious with these voters and these writers how they do things. It's exactly what happened. I completely called it. And we've got Alabama at number 2, Ohio State number 3. Not a big separation in total points between Ohio State and Alabama. Both Ohio State and Alabama have cupcake games next week. I know that for sure. So I'm guessing the top 3 are going to continue to stay the same at this point. Moving down, we've got Michigan remaining at number 4. No surprises there. Clemson is sitting at number 5. Kind of a bad performance against an FCS team. But again, you know, it's very tough to be motivated against a team like Furman. Oklahoma moves up 1 spot. They had a really good defensive performance against Kent State. USC up 3 spots after their big win against Stanford. You know, USC can really take advantage this year of their, you know, there's a lack of top teams, it feels like. You've got the big 3, then kind of Michigan, Clemson, and then there's kind of a gap there. USC, especially in the Pac-12, although that Utah game is still going to be extremely tough on the road. It'll be interesting. USC getting some hype after their Stanford win. Kind of a perfect storm for them. They randomly get that game on ABC, so they get the spotlight to beat up on a bad Stanford team, although Jordan Addison, Mario Williams, Caleb Williams, we knew they were going to be really talented on offense. Matchup nightmares for many of those Pac-12 teams, and they're showing it right now. They're all the way up to number 7. Oklahoma State moves up, I guess because other teams lost, and they also beat Arizona State. Kentucky at number 9. So, guys, this is where it gets a little tough with Kentucky and Arkansas. I understand Kentucky going on the road, beating Florida, but are they the 9th best team in college football? I personally don't think so, but it seems like this year there's not a lot of great teams, so I can understand after their big win against Florida, moving them up also without their running back, although let's be real, I think people kind of overvalued Florida after their week 1 win. Anthony Richardson, it was always going to be kind of a mixed bag with his kind of quarterback dual threat ability. Not really the most, consistent passer of the football. Also, I'm a little concerned about Florida's playmakers. Like, who are their top receivers? I don't think they really have that many elite playmakers. Arkansas at number 10, to me, is ridiculous. They beat South Carolina. Congratulations. Are they a top 10 team? No, they're not. They just don't have the talent, in my opinion, but they're moving up. I mean, how do they move up 6 spots? They beat South Carolina at home. I do not understand that at all. Moving to number 11, Michigan State. So Michigan State, big game this week in Washington. This is huge for the Big Ten, especially after the Wisconsin debacle against Washington State. Michigan State's got to win this game. It's going to be probably close to a pick'em. Washington, they've got the transfer QB from Indiana. That'll be a really good game. BYU at number 12. I love them. They've got a very tough schedule for an independent. They just beat Baylor. Really good win there. Miami moves up 2 spots. Not a great performance. They're going to have A&M. Even though I know people are down on A&M, that's still a tough place to play. So the big non-conference game, Miami at Texas A&M, randomly it's a 9 o'clock at night game. That's very late. Then we've got Utah, whom I don't get this at all. I guess they moved Utah down a spot as kind of a retroactive thing because Utah lost to Florida and then Florida lost to Kentucky, so they wanted to move Utah down. I don't understand that. I think week 1, it's a tough loss against the team, like an SEC team that's got talent on the road. I understand Kentucky played Florida a lot better, but I don't know if I agree with moving Utah down. Tennessee moves up 9 spots. Tennessee, I don't agree with that either. I don't think Tennessee's the number 15 team in the country. They beat Pittsburgh. It was a good win, but if you actually watched that game, I think Pitt was up 10-0, like early first quarter. They were leading. They end up losing their starting quarterback. Tennessee elects to go to overtime because they know Pittsburgh has their backup quarterback. If you actually look at the context of that game, a little bit of a less impressive win, and also Heinz Field, it was kind of a disappointing crowd, like it normally is, the atmosphere there, except for week 1. Week 1, it was amazing at Heinz Field. Then we've got NC State at 16. Yeah, they had the week 1 debacle. They beat an FCS team this week, whatever. Baylor's down 8 spots. I think that's a lot more accurate on where Baylor should be ranked. I was saying they were way overranked as a top 10 team. I said they were going to lose to BYU. That was before I even knew BYU was going to be without their top 2 receivers, and BYU still beats them. And they really controlled that game. It ended up going to overtime, but BYU gets the win at home. Baylor's still a solid team. They deserve to be a top 20 team, but definitely more down, in my opinion. Florida is down to number 18, so people are going to say, well, Florida beat Utah. How is, Utah in front of Florida? Guys, the game was in Florida, and it was the way it works, it's a situation where if Florida goes to Utah, do we really think Florida's going to win? If they're on a neutral field, I would give the edge to Utah. I think Utah's better. And then people say, oh, so you don't care about head-to-head. No. The head-to-head was in Florida. So that's an auto advantage to Florida. I think Utah is better than Florida. I understand Florida barely beat Utah on a fluke interception. I understand that. I like Anthony Richardson. But I completely agree that Utah should be ahead of Florida. Just because Florida beats Utah barely while they're at home, that doesn't immediately make them the better team. They won at home in week 1, in my opinion. And then you've got Wake Forest at 19. So Wake Forest moving up due to Sam Hartman being back, we presume. I still am not buying Wake Forest personally. We'll see what they end up doing. Ole Miss moves up 2 spots. Who knows? Who knows? Texas at 21, so I thought Texas would probably be a top 20 team. I've said before, yesterday especially, it's very interesting with Texas, the quarterback injuries. We will see what happens to them. I haven't looked at their schedule yet. I'm guessing they probably face a cupcake this week, just because they faced Alabama. It's probably a non-conference game. I'm not guessing they face a Power 5 team after facing Alabama. But Texas at 21, I've got no issues with that. They should have won. They played really good football. Really shut down Alabama. Surprised with Alabama, their lack of receiver weapons there. Penn State appears, so that's great to see. I would have ranked Penn State in my preseason poll. They're at 22. We've got Pittsburgh moving down to 23. I think Pittsburgh needs to be unranked, personally. A&M at 24. I mean, people were pissed that A&M stayed ranked. Appalachian State isn't, right? Appalachian State beats them. That's where it kind of gets weird with college football. This is just that I think a lot of people unranked A&M. I would have to really look at it. But A&M certainly, the quarterback situation is such a mess, and they're way too young, like I said. And then Oregon reappears on the poll at number 25. They crushed Eastern Washington. It would have been great to see Marshall get ranked. They just missed it, the first team out. Cincinnati, Appalachia. You know what? It really would have been a good idea for them to throw Marshall a bone and Appalachian State a bone after the 2 upset wins. Also, I think Kansas State should be ranked. They're a really good team. North Carolina has no defense. Mississippi State had a really good win last night in Arizona. Florida State should not be ranked, no. Oregon State is an interesting team. I wouldn't rank them, but they're interesting. Minnesota, I would probably rank. I would probably rank. I know they have a lack of, passing game, but they've got 2 running backs, really, really good tandem there. Washington State gets some votes. I'm not buying it. It was a great win at Wisconsin, but come on. Notre Dame gets 23 votes, 0-2, but they moved way down, of course. Well, they didn't move down. They moved out. Air Force is an underrated team. Texas Tech shouldn't have even beat Houston, folks. Come on. Texas Tech. Wait, did Houston not even receive any votes? Oh, that's so sad. Wisconsin gets 7 votes. Wow. And then Auburn. So Auburn faces Penn State. This is a huge matchup for the Big Ten this week. I think Penn State's a lock to win on the road, but we will see. That's a 3:30 CBS game. Iowa State, yeah, let's not rank them. And then Purdue still gets a vote. I think that's the same voter. So, guys, the overall big takeaways here from the Week 3 poll, you've got Alabama. We knew they were going to drop. How far did they drop? They only dropped to 2. My thinking, if Notre Dame beats Marshall, Ohio State is number 2. That's my thinking. Because we're so early in the season, it matters. These other matchups have such a significant impact. And we see Alabama staying at number 2. And really, not a lot of movement. I guess you could say USC is trending up after their win. They're up to number 7. And then teams like Kentucky and Arkansas, I don't see it. I think a lot of that is SEC. You're just going to have to deal with it nowadays. It is the Bermuda Triangle of death. That's why the Week 1 game, I said it was horrible. When Utah I'll explain this really quickly. Utah loses to Florida, so Florida immediately gets valued as like a top 10 team. Florida then loses to Kentucky, so now Florida drops, but now Kentucky gets a major win against the team that was valued as a top 10 team, so now we see Kentucky, and then whoever beats Kentucky in the SEC, then they're going to get valued. The thing that you want to have happen is you want like a team like Missouri to beat Kentucky. That's the only way this Bermuda Triangle ends. You have to have a team that's so bad. Even if they win, they're not going to get ranked if they upset a Kentucky. It's a Bermuda Triangle. Even if Florida loses to Kentucky, they're just going to bump Kentucky to a top 10 team. The SEC Bermuda Triangle, the Week 1 game kicks it off, and then for the Big Ten, you cannot lose. The Big Ten, the Washington State game, it ruined it. It ruined the Big Ten season almost because you lose that game. Wisconsin's not a top 25 team. Wisconsin's going to get crushed in 2 weeks against Ohio State. They're going to be so far away. Your only hope in the West now is Minnesota, I would say, at this point, because you look at the West, Iowa can't score. It's historic how bad it is. And then Purdue is nothing special. So, this is a situation. It's not looking too good for the Big Ten, especially that major non-conference. There's 2 huge matchups this week. They're so critical for the Big Ten with the Washington-Michigan State game in Washington. That's the home and home. I believe it's a home and home. And then there's another game I'm forgetting. I'm sorry. But either way, there are 2. Oh, yeah. Penn State-Auburn. Penn State on the road. Both Big Ten teams on the road. They need to win. Both of them need to win. But, guys, that is the updated top 25 for Week 3. Some major upsets. We've got Notre Dame. They're not ranked. A&M is hanging on by a thread. And Alabama drops to number 2. Georgia is the new number 1 team. Guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter.